Chapter 30. The Eyes Have It. I knew I was in terrible trouble when I felt someone leaning over me in the emergency room and heard a voice. It must have been the on-call resident say, "Oh, shit!" Then Dr. Chang was there, and I told him, still in the dark, with presence, "I guess I won't be able to help Deborah as much now." And then they started to put me out. I remember I was thinking about the time a bunch of my high school buddies and I went picnicking at a small lake. Somehow, they all drifted away as night fell, and I was alone in the darkness. I stumbled through the woods towards the lights in the distance, getting scratched and muddy until I finally caught up with the crowd at someone's apartment, tracking mud. I thought they should have known I had night blindness and waited for me. Then I woke up with a bulky bandage covering my right eye. Dr. Chang had managed to piece it up together, but the vision was gone, and the cornea I'd inherited from a thoughtful and generous stranger was ruined. Over time, I'd felt guilty about that, and sorry to have needlessly spoiled the skilled hand-stitching of San Francisco's legendary Dr. Max Fine, who'd done both of my corneal transplants. Later, I thought of all the catchy phrases I would share with friends and family who'd sent healing energy to me in phone calls, notes, and emails, phrases that would now have amusing double meanings. "I'll keep an eye out for you." "I'm keeping my eye peeled." "I've got my eye on you." "You're a sight for sore eyes." "You're the apple of my eye." Substitute fruit of choice. "I look forward to seeing less of you." There were others, but you get the idea. I was alone at home, with a pizza in the oven, the TV blaring, and a glass of wine. Deborah had gone to dinner with our friend Judy Fraser. She'd been an actress once and dated another good friend, talent executive Joe Rich. But we didn't know them then. When they caught up with me in the emergency room, Judy rubbed my feet and Deborah comforted me as the anesthetic kicked in. The oven beeped. I got the mitts, opened the door, took out the pizza, put it down on the nearby counter, turned back to turn the oven off. Somehow, I'd left the oven door partly open. The corner of the door caught me right in the eye. The pain was sudden and searing and intense. I heard someone scream. I must have gone into shock. I closed the door, took a bite of pizza, found the phone, called Deborah at the restaurant, dialed 911 and Dr. Chang's exchange, went upstairs, took out my left contact lens, put on my glasses, although I really wasn't seeing anything, then went downstairs and outside to wait for the paramedics. They were efficient and reassuring as they loaded me onto a gurney. I heard a neighbor's voice asking if I was all right, and I remember saying, "Please keep an eye on the house. I left the front door unlocked. When she comes home, Deborah may have forgotten her key." When Deborah did come home, she found the neighbor she barely knew, Steve Arvizu, then president of Oxnard College, sitting in our living room, waiting for her, and a pizza with a bite missing on the kitchen counter. I remained concerned about Deborah, who was gradually losing her vision to retinitis pigmentosa, and had recently acquired a guide dog. I was used to helping her, although she is fiercely independent and adaptable, driving her to doctor's appointments, stores, meetings, lunches. I felt especially guilty, sensing that whatever happened, that might no longer be possible. I couldn't help thinking that I was glad my parents weren't alive to see this. If they had been, it would have killed them. When he checked on me in the hospital room later, Dr. Chang took a moment or two to commiserate. He told me that his wife had been a paraplegic since an awful automobile accident a couple years ago, and he identified with my feeling of helplessness. He said, "Take it a day at a time and try not to worry." I knew I was nearsighted and had night blindness from childhood, when two incidents occurred that I have always remembered. The first, as I've mentioned, was when I was quite young and ran to my father's Uncle Dave, thinking he was my Zadie, Dad's father, whom he resembled. The other incident took place on a Sunday, when we went to visit my booby sister Ida. The sisters were both widows. Ida's husband, Uncle Joe, was nice to me and always smelled of cigar smoke. Somehow, I have a memory of him sitting with my grandpa at the beach, on the sand, both wearing black woolen swimsuits with thin white canvas belts and smoking cigars in amber holders. They came from far distant sides of the family. Their only relationship must have been the cigars. We got to Ida's in the afternoon, but the sisters hadn't seen each other for a while and needed to talk. So by the time we left her small apartment, it was dark. I usually held my mother or father's hand, but this time I ran ahead, straight into a large clump of bushes dividing the sidewalk. I simply hadn't seen it. By a strange coincidence, my mother had once worked for an ophthalmologist. The next morning, she took me to Dr. Sagoff's office, which featured a huge oriental rug with a colorful, detailed pattern. He took a penny from his pocket, tossed it onto the rug, and told me I could keep it if I could find it. I couldn't see it. I crawled on the floor, searching the expanse of rug ahead of me with sweeping hands. Finally, I touched the penny, but somehow I felt little satisfaction. I must have sensed my mother's troubled reaction. I wore glasses after that, thick at the edges and thin in the middle. I frequently broke them when I was playing baseball or two hands below the belt touch football. The fragile middle would pop out. My parents were torn between limiting my play for the sake of safety and economy or encouraging it. As usual, my mother was the one who cheered me on, and she coated one of my eyeglass lenses with Bon Ami to strengthen the other eye. I used to scrape some off with my fingernail without telling her so I could see better. I don't think either of my parents was ever aware that I had to walk right up to the blackboard in class, almost nose to board to read the assignments. At least they never mentioned it. I don't recall that any of the kids laughed. They might have been snickering behind my back, but I don't think so. The teachers were more strict then, and it was a kinder, gentler time. I realized, as I grew older, that both my uncles, Mickey, my mother's brother, and Fred, my father's, always wore glasses. My brother and I were close in their gene pool, I guess, but my folks never needed glasses, except as the years passed for reading. I was 30 when someone suggested contact lenses, and after many uncomfortable fittings with different sizes and shapes, even triangular ones, I saw myself in the mirror for the first time without glasses. Till then, I only knew what I looked like from pictures. Most of them revealed a skinny kid with an eye that wandered. I made a good adjustment after the accident. My vision in the remaining eye actually improved as it began to compensate for the loss of its companion. I was able to drive again. For a while, Deborah was reluctant to ride with me, joking that she feared for her life. Come to think of it, she may not have been joking. It's possible that Deborah and I have grown even closer because of our eyes. And now when we go out together, there's a threesome. Me, Deborah, and her beautiful guide dog, Gina.